you can also depreciate the whole structure. And it's called straight line depreciation. And the way that works is everything that you put into the deal, your closing cost, your purchase price, all that stuff, you take that and you take the land value out, because land never goes down. The government's not going to let you depreciate that. But they say you can take this house and you can depreciate it over 27 and a half years. So they think after 27 and a half years, that house is not going to be worth anything. So that's the theory behind that. So you take all that big value, what you bought it, all that, minus the tax value, and you figure out your basis, and then you divide that over 27 and a half years, and every year that's your write-off. Okay?
It's a straight line, your 27, 25 years?
Yes, sir.
That's where that straight line depreciation comes in?
Yes, sir.
And you do each house differently other than the straight?
Oh, I don't think so, but I don't know.
You used to be able to, but I think it's changed. It's just one straight line.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think when you get into like commercial stuff, you might, maybe I'm not even going to talk about that. Okay, how about that? I'll give you a number to an account.
How do you figure that straight line? Is that based on the total value of the house?
Here's what you do. And when I created this, I was on the phone with my CPA and we went over everything and I showed him it all and he kind of went over it all with me and all that stuff. So I'm not an expert on this stuff, and everybody's situation is going to be 100% different. These are the ones that I think are fit to the. I think this fits to everybody, for the most part. But there's lots of other things too that are kind of individual. So I would go to an accountant. But the way you figure it out is I got $55,000, right? And I paid like, I don't know, $8,000 and probably $10,000 in costs. Like the interest, the closing cost, the refinance cost, all that stuff. And I paid $15,000 in repairs, right? So out of pocket, I'm at 65, 70, 80, $80,000 I'm at, right? So you take out the land value, and I just use a standard 20%, right? Because it's probably going to be about $17,000 for that lot, maybe 20, something like that. Let's just say it's 20. You got $60,000 here, because you can't depreciate the land, remember. So this is what your structure, what you have into it, minus the land value, $60,000. And then you divide that by 27 and a half years, and every year that's your write-off. And that's going to come out to like $1,500, $2,000 or something like that. But it's a write-off. So I think on this it came out to a little bit more. But and the way a write-off works, if you've got a $10,000 write-off and you made $100,000 last year, you apply your $10,000 write-off, and now in the eyes of the government you made $90,000, so you didn't have to pay taxes on that extra $10,000. So if you're in like the 30% tax bracket or whatever tax bracket is, then you're going to that's $3,000 you didn't have to pay in your taxes. And remember, if you can save on the expenses, you can increase your profit. So those are all the. Anybody have any questions about that? So that you get this every single year, you're basically going to, you don't have to pay that $755 in taxes, or you get to save on your, doesn't matter where your income is, if it's on that house or if it's somewhere else, anything like that. You get to do that for 27 and a half years. That's a tax. The way I have it set up, that's like a tax credit, not like a write-off. I've already done the math all the way down to the dollar that you save. Add all those up with your annual cash flow, and your performance on that year was, on that house, the first year was $10,847. You've almost gotten to where you got just flipping this house in your first year, But when I looked at this and I thought in my head like, oh, I'm going to make like, $400, in my first month doing this. It's not, I can make 13. You go into a room of flippers, and there's 10 flippers over here, and you ask them how many of them are really wealthy individuals. There's going to be like 2 guys that raise their hand. You go into a room with landlords, and you try to find out who's really a wealthy individual. 8 of them will be in there. And this is how they're building the long-term wealth. Here's the best part. You almost made as much as you made flipping the house already in your tax savings and your cash flow in your first year, but you haven't even touched your equity yet. You had to give that up to get the profit you made before, but this, you made the money and you haven't even had to touch the equity. You still have it. You still have $33,000 in unrealized equity. Add those together and pay yourself back, because remember, you got 13 grand into this deal. Is what you did. Your 10,000 down, your 3,000 for payments, all that. So this is going to get a little confusing. We're not going to think of this as money now, today. We're going to think about it as some money realized, some money unrealized, okay? Here's what you made your first year. This is what you have unrealized. That's what's called an equity capture. We're going to add these two together. And then we're going to pay ourselves back. We're not going to literally pay ourselves back, but we're just trying to figure out what our net return was on the first year on this deal, okay? $30,000 is what we really made. Now, we're not going to make that again next year because we don't get the equity again, right? We claimed it as our first year because that's when you make money when you buy houses, right? Not when you sell. That's a 216% return on your money. You took 13 grand and you made 10 grand and plus you got $33,000 in unrealized equity. That's a 216% return on your money. Is that the best thing ever?
On the unrealized equity, $33,000, can you refinance on that, or can you use that as down payment on another property?
If you want to get the money that you have back out of it, that 13 grand.
That's what that $33,000 is.
No, that's equity that you've got based on if this house never goes up in value, and in 10 years when you sell it, or let's say you sell it at the end of the year.
Okay.
That's your equity, right? You're still going to have closing costs and stuff like that, but let's just say we're sitting in there. So, but
Getting into you got to have a 6-month holding period, is what he's asking, I think.
That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
get at.
Talking about
But that is
cash out financing.
If you wanted to refinance or use that to purchase another piece of property, would the bank say, okay, you got $33,000?
no, not today. Not this day and age. Not even in 6 months. Here's how that's going to work, okay? You have to have a tenant in the now you can talk to Kim Sporik here. She does a lot of portfolio refinances and stuff like that. She may have some programs that I don't know about and stuff like that. But typically, here's how it works. You can go to a portfolio lender and you can do some things at no seasoning to just get a refinance. But most big lenders, like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're going to do 90 days, 6 months seasoning. But if you want to do a cash out, not a rate and term refinance, it's completely different. You have to have a tenant in the house for 6 months. So you refinance in 3, then you find a tenant, you put them in there. The soonest you can do it is in 9 months. You see? The 3 months that you refinance, and then typically. Unless you get your repairs done real quick, you get a portfolio loan, you refinance in a month, but that's just not realistic. And then you could do a cash out refinance. But your cash out refinance is going to be limited to 75% of the appraised value of the home. Okay? In most cases, because I'm very cautious about talking about this because the loan programs, they change like every day that a banker gets out of bed in the morning. So when he looks at the market, they're all over the place. So, this house is worth $100 grand. So in 9 months, they may recertify that appraisal, but more likely they'll order a new one, and it's probably be worth 50 by then. No, I'm just kidding. But it's 100 grand, and then they're going to give you $75,000. So your original loan is like 66,000. We thought 65,000 is what it was. So they're going to give you $75,000. So you're going to get about 10 grand back. You're not going to get your whole 13,000 bucks back. So you're going to have some money tied up in this thing. What I would do, and what I'm going to show you how to do is buy like 4 houses, and then, once you refinance it, and then you keep going, and then, a couple of years later you can refinance again, or a year later or something like that. You probably don't want to do it every year because every time you refinance, you're going to pay that $1,500, $2,000. But if you want to get that money out, it's one way to do it. But in 2 years or so, who knows? Maybe we can do these 80% refinances again. Maybe values go shooting back. Maybe there's a world war again. And prices go up, right? But anyway, this is an asset, okay? That means it's going to perform every year, or theoretically. It'll perform every year. So the next year, you don't need to put more money in. Okay, if you've done a good job on your rehab and you don't have like a 6-year-old water cooler in there or anything like that, you're going to make money again. And you're not going to have as much of a tax write-off because your tax write-off is going to start dwindling down because you're going to get really most of that up front. But the second year, you're going to make about $7,000 with your tax write-offs and your cash flow. So this thing's going to keep performing every single year. It's just like the snowball rolling down the hill, you know? Flippers, they don't have the snowball. They got to keep throwing them. You know, they can't just roll one down the hill and get it bigger and bigger.
Well, this is equity, in other words. Your equity would go up another 7,000.
No, that's your cash
I'm
flow.
trying to understand.
That's the money you're going to make next year on cash flow. I'm not basing this really on, I'll show you. I'm basing this very lightly on future projections and speculation, but I don't like to base anything on that. That's just your cash flow and your tax savings. That will be your income from this business, from this asset next year. Your net income. Here's how real estate works. For you, those of you that have been with Lifestyles for a while, you've probably seen this chart before. I ripped it off because I like it so much. Now this is actually a really old concept, and it's still true today. Here's the beauty of being a landlord. Time works for you. Okay, when you're a flipper, and I'm not trying to dog flipping or buying, fixing, selling. I think it's good. It's a real good way to build up reserves. You know, there's good and bad in everything, like I said. But here's one of the best things about being a landlord is time is working for you, not against you. When you start out, you got this deal from Julian here, so he found you a really good deal. So, you know, the average old person's got to buy a house right here and have zero equity and build it over time. But you bought it right in the beginning, right? Because you guys found a good house that was beat up and you spent a month or two fixing it up. So you start out with that $30,000 in equity day one. That's what you got. Over time, this asset will go up in value, or at least it should, right? You never know. They could build a highway next door or something like that, right? But at the same time, over time, as this asset is increasing in value, your debt is reducing. You know why? Because you got somebody paying off your mortgage for you. What an idiot. He's paying your debt for you. What? But anyway, so as the years go on, you're going to get a bigger slice of that pie. That 30 grand is going to go to 50 grand, right? Because they're paying off that and your thing's improving. It's going to go to 60, 70, 80 grand. When paid off, it's going to be worth well over 100 grand, obviously, we think. Time is on your side. Here's another reason why that's so important. Here's how real estate works. The cost of housing will always go up because inflation will push up construction costs, supplies, labor, things like that. Minimum wage will go up. Housing will always go up. But we've got this thing called the market, and we've got housing demand. And that's basically how many people can qualify for a house that are out there looking for houses. That number goes up and down. Before, we had every taxi driver, grocery store, bagger, everybody in the world could get a mortgage because all they had to do was fog a mirror and, give, $50 down. So that was driving prices up through the roof. And nobody wanted to rent your house from you if you were a landlord, because why would they give you like $1,000 for a security deposit in first month's rent and last month's rent when they can buy a brand new house for like $50, right? And worry about the payments later.